This is the Self Storage Podcast, where we share the knowledge and skills from the industry's leading investors, developers, and operators to help you launch and grow your self-storage business. I'm your host, Scott Meyers, and over the past 16 years, we have acquired, developed, converted, and syndicated over 2 million square feet of self-storage nationwide with the help of my incredible team at selfstorageinvesting.com, who has helped thousands of people achieve greatness in self-storage. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Self Storage Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Meyers, and my guest on today's show is my good friend, Joe McCall. And first and foremost, Joe, like myself, he got into business for himself so he could spend more time with his family. And he lives for hanging out with his kids at the zoo, or recently really has gotten into golfing with his boys, or he enjoys spending time swimming with the girls, and will be quick to tell you that nothing is more important to him than God and family. And I have seen this firsthand. Prior to getting into real estate, Joe was a civil engineer and was responsible for the design and construction of power plants all across the country. But his superpower lies in his ability to simplify complex business processes and problems. Joe has been a business owner and real estate investor now for more than 14 years and is a master at building the niche within a niche businesses using technology as a foundation for customer acquisition, sales, and deliverability. And not only does Joe have his own superpower, he's also an expert at flipping properties remotely as well. Now, in the last several years, Joe has built his business in a way that has allowed him to spend months at a time traveling the world to places like Prague and the Czech Republic, and 3 months traveling the northwestern part of the U.S. in an RV with his wife and 4 kids. And also worth mentioning, Joe has been hosting the popular Real Estate Investing Mastery podcast for almost 10 years now, very, very early adopter of the podcast movement. And he has over 5 million downloads with listeners in over 165 different countries. And add to that is Joe and I, we are chatting offline here. He is a recent, I don't know if you want to call it a survivor, but has overcome COVID-19. So add that to his list of superpowers. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Scott. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Good to see you, my friend. I'm glad you're feeling better.
Thanks. I am feeling a lot better. It was just kind of a bad case of a cold flu, and it wasn't even that bad.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's good to hear, because obviously that's a lot of the discussion now at the time of this, but glad to hear that it is not as bad, at least hopefully, as some people are fearing out there.
Yeah, well, it's serious. You still have to take it seriously. I hate masks, but I still wear them. But it's sad how it's gotten so political. And, for certain people in our population, the elderly, especially, right, it can be devastating, just like any flu virus, but this one tends to be bigger. I don't know, but it just felt like a bad flu, and nothing that a little Dayquil and NyQuil couldn't help. And that's what I did. I still worked, just went to bed earlier, and then took NyQuil and at night and Dayquil in the day.
Well, glad to see you back upright again, and glad that we were able to connect here. And at the time that we chatted, when you felt you had something, or maybe this was the time that we had our mastermind, and so I know we missed you at that. But once again, glad to have you back here, upright and back at it again.
Yeah, thanks, man. Well, it's good to be on your show, Scott.
Yeah, well, let's I read your bio, gave everybody a little bit of background on yourself. So why don't you fill in the gaps and then tell us how you got to this place where you are right now in real estate and being able to do all these cool things with the family.
Yeah, thanks. Well, we have a mutual friend, Sean McCloskey and Steve Cook, and back in the day, they had this program called Life and Air, and people were asking Steve all the time, how do you become a millionaire? And he started thinking, it's not about the money, it's about having a life first, right? And so he came up with the term Life on Air. And so I was friends with Sean McCloskey at the time, who was friends with Steve Cook, and so they created this coaching program together called Life and Air, and it still exists. It's still a good program. I'm not a part of it, but not for any bad reason. I just moved on. But one of the things they did in there was help you figure out what kind of creating a vision for your life, right? So most of us have our business or our job, and it's the center of everything. And then our life kind of fits in around that. We have our 40, 60 hours a week. And then after that, on the evenings and the weekends is when we kind of fit in our family time. But they opened my eyes to this idea of what if we reversed that and made our life the center, our family, what's most important, the vision for our life, and then fit the business around that, kind of reverse it. And so my wife and I, we decided, we want to homeschool our kids because we want to travel. We want the freedom that having being homeschooled gives you. It's not that we're anti-public school, although we're not pro-public school either, but like we're in a good school district, right? And so I'm not anti-public school. I'm just so much pro-homeschool because of the freedom it gives you. So we've have 4 kids, and we've adopted all 4 of our kids, and we've had the privilege of traveling for months at a time, 2 to 3 months at a time. I think we've done this 3 or 4 times now, where we go to Europe for 3 months, or we go in an RV for 3 months, traveling and camping. So, and as the kids have gotten older and they're getting into sports and gymnastics and dance and music, it's harder to do those kinds of things. But that's what we decided to do. We wanted a business that gave me freedom. I didn't want a business with a lot of overhead, a lot of employees, high expenses. I wanted something simple that I could run virtual. So I've been working from home since 2009. So 11 years now. And we homeschool our kids. So when COVID happened, nothing really changed for us. You know, we're already at home. Our kids are already at home, and I work from home. So I've made a lot of mistakes also, but I've done a lot of things well by God's grace. And so now we have the freedom to pretty much work whenever I want. I can sleep in, I can take the day off if I want. And I'm just really kind of doing the stuff I love to do. I'm passionate about. I have a simple staff. I do have 3 or 4 employees in the US, 3 employees in the US, and then maybe 3 or 4 virtual assistants in the Philippines. But my overhead is pretty simple, and I like the business. I love the freedom that this business can give you. So today, we still do deals, but I also have a publishing business, a media company that does podcasts and videos and books, courses, some consulting, some software, some done for you marketing services and stuff like that. Yeah, it's a good market to be in, even in spite of COVID, in spite of the shutdown, in spite of the pandemic. No matter if the market's going up or down, sideways, there's a lot of different niches in real estate. Now that's why I love yours with self-storage, but there's always opportunity to make money in this market and in real estate if you just, keep your eye on the prize and look to see what other people are doing and model it. Does that make sense?
It sure does, and I appreciate that, Joe. And once again, so thankful to have you on the show, as we are cut literally from a very, very similar cloth. We also, as you know, homeschooled our kids from the beginning for that same reason, and we knew that real estate was the vehicle that was going to allow us to be able to be present and to be able to raise our kids. And we are pro homeschooling, not that we're anti public schooling. However, we know the difference, and we certainly like the choices that we have made as well. And that has allowed us to do the exact same thing, which is to travel with our kids. And our education and information publishing business has, afforded us opportunities for me to go and speak and teach and hold events in different parts of the country. And there was always a vacation that was surrounded by that as well. And as we begin investing more and more in different parts of the country, it allowed us to be able to go visit the storage facilities that we were developing, building, or purchasing in other parts of the country as well. And again, all by design, but that wouldn't have happened if we didn't have that intentional design. And we had that vision quite early on in our marriage for Christina and I. But Sean and Steve's book, Life on Air, certainly made us accelerate a lot of that and put that in place as well. And so, for those of you out there, just a plug for Life on Air. If you haven't at the very least read the book, let alone gone to any of the workshops, just highly recommend it. But so one of the things, the thing that I wanted to bring you on for, Joe, is, as we were chatting in Florida recently about, let's look at how do we look at markets, first of all, from a research standpoint. And, COVID has changed the ways that we can't just go out and look at a property. We can't just go out and look at a site, or at the very least, we're now, trying to minimize our travel time anyways, and doing as much market research and honing in on a particular area, and just, the ways that you were doing it, and the really, gosh, the clinical approach and the surgical nature in which you were picking markets apart before you invest in it, took it to a different level. And, I walked away with a few notes and ideas, and that's why I wanted to have you on the show to kind of talk about, from a market standpoint, I'm a little different. I'd say half of the folks that listen to us, follow us, are students. We'll go find a deal And then we back into the market and make sure that the market will support the deal. And then we'd like to buy more facilities and get economies of scale from a management standpoint in that market. And that's the way I operate. But then there's other folks out there that are saying, well, let's pick another market, whether it's the grass is always greener and there's no deals in my market syndrome, or
Yeah.
hey, we can see the trends where people are moving southeast, and we know that's going to happen for years to come. Folks are leaving as a result of the
Yeah.
economy and what's happening in this part of the country. You can follow the U-Haul trucks and see what they're doing. So you've taken that to a much higher level. So I wanted to have you on here to talk about how you go into these, how you find the markets, but then really kind of the steps that you take to make sure that this is the right market to invest in.
Yeah. Great question. Jeez, that's a great question. Um, well, first of all, looking back, I was always a big Investor Business Daily fan, and William O'Neill. Before I was even interested in real estate, I was interested in the stock market and kind of a good mix of fundamental investing, stock investing, and technical investing. So um, I liked their approach, and one of the things that O'Neill always talked about in his books and in the newspaper Investors Business Daily was following the trend. Understanding where the trend is, and it's kind of like you and I, the average Joes, don't have any influence or impact on the market and the direction it's heading. We don't. Like, it's the big hedge funds, it's the big institutional investors that control whether a stock is going to go up or down based on their interest on it, and they're buying it. So one of the things that they taught was you could be that little fly on the elephant's back, that you see where direction the market is going. And if the market's going up, then you pretty much anything you pick in that kind of a market's going to do well. But look to see where the big money is going and follow the big money. And the same when the market's falling, don't think you can outsmart the market. If you try to catch a falling knife, you're going to get in trouble. So the idea is follow the winners, follow the trends. And and also what had big influence on me was the book, Who Moved the Cheese? Back in the early 2000s, I read that. And so I've always thought about, where is the cheese moving? So when it came to housing and real estate, I always have been thinking about, okay, nationwide, where's the cheese moving? Where is the demand? Where are people buying properties? And I've seen this now even more as I coach people and help people all across the country do deals. There's certain markets that are just not the best places to go. If you want to invest in real estate, in my opinion, for example, California, New York, very expensive, very competitive, anti-investor in some cases, pro tenant. It's hard. It's just harder there, but you can still make money. A lot of people do, but you see in the history of the market, really high peaks and very low lows, and the cycles go up and down very quickly and rapidly, and huge swings, right? So I've always been a fan of investing in the median priced markets, the middle of America. If you look at and even in a market or across the US, if you look at all the houses that have sold in the last 3 to 6 months or a year, and you stack them, you sort them from low to high, you'll see a bell curve, right? And that median price is the price in the middle where most of the houses are being bought and sold, in that median price range. And so you can look at that in a market or across the US. So if I'm wanting to invest in St. Louis, for example, I'm going to see where's the middle of that bell curve. And I want to stick, they're called standard deviations. It's not an exact science, but you want to stick inside of the middle of that median curve, right? So if the median price range in St. Louis is 200,000, that means like 65, 70% of all the homes that are bought and sold in Missouri in St. Louis are going to be between maybe 125 and $250,000. Like that's where you want to focus on. So then it's really easy with public data, or even for free public data, or even going to sites like Redfin or ListSource. There's a lot of them now. PropStream is one that I use a lot. You can download all the properties that sold, and in a simple spreadsheet, see where the zip codes are, where most of the homes that in that price range have been bought and sold in the last 6 to 12 months. And that's where, for me, for housing, I want to focus on. I want to stay in that sweet spot because I know if I get a house there, it's going to be easy to find a tenant. It's going to be easy to sell it. It's going to be, if I fix and flip it, so they're just easier to sell. And you've heard this before. The easiest way to make money in real estate is to do what's easy, right? So let's stop complicating it. Let's go where all the fish are biting, and let's cast as many lines in that area. And let's try to get some motivated sellers. Let's try to get some deals where the buyers are already buying.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you can see where the buyers are buying, where the houses are selling the quickest, then that's where you need to focus like a laser beam, all of your marketing. You need to focus on the motivated sellers that have equity, that, if you see everybody's buying 3-bedroom ranches in these pocket of zip codes, then you need to target all of the 3-bedroom ranches that have at least 50% equity, and if your list is too big, then narrow it down to people that have owned it for at least 10 years and have at least 50% equity or whatnot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then target your marketing to that. Does that make sense?
It really does, Joe. And before folks tune out because they're saying, why are Scott and Joe talking about single family house investing when this is the self-storage podcast? And that is for this reason. When we are looking at two things we're looking at in what determines a good market, or the two primary areas, and one of which is the supply index. And so, somewhere, depending upon who you talk to, 7 square foot per person, in a market. Every market is a little bit different, but that has been considered the baseline. If you have 10 square feet of self-storage per person, it's oversupplied or overbuilt. If it's 4, it's undersupplied, and you want to be buying or developing in those markets, for instance, all things being equal. So what does that have to do with houses and where people are buying? Well, because then there's the second piece of that is the demand factor. Because there's markets that we go into in which it is a 10, 11, 12 square foot per person, yet all the competition in a 5-mile radius, when we pull our reports from Yardi and Radius Plus and all the other tools, and even just going and calling the managers or knocking on the doors of the facilities, you find they're 95% full. Well, how is that, or why is that? Well, it's because of the demand factor. And that is in those areas, just as you described, Joe, where there's lots of transactions. We can't point to anything else other than perhaps once in a while it's a college town that has a lot of movement, or a military town. But at the end of the day, it's those hot markets where that median price is very popular, and it's in a market in which there's a lot of activity and a lot of transactions. And so in those instances, if we can determine that underlying factor, the demand, then where many investors may say, well, 9, 10 square feet per person, my baseline is this. And so for that reason in underwriting, I'm out. And those are the times when we'll go in and say, well, hold on a second, but everybody's full. What is the reason behind that? And it's for that reason that you just mentioned, Joe. So
I think this is an important principle to understand too. People are afraid of competition.
Mm-hmm.
They're afraid to say, well, why would I want to invest in a self-storage unit here if there's already a bunch of self-storage units here?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a reason why there's a bunch of self-storage units there, right?
Yeah,
there's a demand for it. Why do you think Home Depot and Lowe's always build stores right next to each other?
Mm-hmm.
No,
Mm-hmm.
they're not afraid of competition. They're thinking, you know what? If Lowe's built a store here, we're going to build one too. Because if somebody is out there thinking, I need some supplies, I need some lumber, they're going to go to there. And if Home Depot doesn't have it, they're going to go across the street to the Lowe's. You always see it the same with Walmart and Target, grocery stores.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them open up because there's an areas where the competition is a good thing, is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
So you may think you want to be the lone wolf. You want to have that secret edge that nobody else has. And you want to find this new piece of real estate, no matter what it is, like there might be a reason why there are no storage units there. There might be a reason why there's no hotels. There's no commercial buildings, apartments, because there's someone has already done the research. Don't try to reinvent the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
The whole story of pioneers, you can tell who pioneers are because they're the ones with all the arrows in their backs, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be a pioneer necessarily in those kinds of things. Stick with what works. When I look at in a market and I'm looking for houses or even vacant land, we flip a lot of vacant land. I'm looking for where most of the people are, where my competitors already are.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know where are they already advertising, buying and selling. And I want to, if I know this guy does a lot of deals, what markets is he in? And it's the market is huge,
Mm-hmm.
huge. There's not enough just for one or two players. There's a lot of opportunity there. So my big message is I'm trying to say is don't be afraid of the competition.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think that because you see other people there with storage units that it's a bad market. There is a point where it's oversaturated, right? But
Mm-hmm.
there's most times that I've seen, there is more opportunity there.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. Does that
Well,
make sense?
people will, they'll, when I let them know what line of work I'm in, they'll say, "Oh my gosh, self-storage! I see these things going up all over the place. There's cranes building storage facilities. There's, two down the road from my house. I can't imagine there's that much demand, and it must be oversaturated." And to your point, yeah, well, people don't build a McDonald's, they don't build Starbucks, they don't build a hospital. We don't build storage facilities or apartments unless we've done a whole lot of research and realize and recognize that there's a demand for it. And in the very beginning of my days in commercial real estate of apartments and self storage, the mantra was always, well, follow the sewers, follow the utilities, as to where they're coming to see where, what's in place and or what is coming and what will be in place. And we still, we're as you mentioned, we follow the REITs, the real estate investment trust. When public is going in or extra space and we see permits being pulled and we keep an eye out, we know that they've done their homework and sometimes they're seeing things a little further out than we are.
Yeah.
And at that point, then we begin to look just a little further out or in a different direction, just a couple of degrees, because we know that they've seen something in the market.
Yeah.
But by that time, it may be a little bit too late. So I want to pull on one of the threads that you mentioned, Joe. You said you flip a lot of land, and so let's talk about some of the drivers we want to. Let's say we want to be first to market, and the permits haven't been pulled, and we don't see that the public storages, the extra space, the life storage is coming. How do we get ahead of that? What trends, what drivers and growth in a market do you see as precursors to an area that's going to be good for development that we may want to snatch up 4 or 5 acres and build a facility?
Well, I could share my screen with you, and I will here. Is this an audio podcast or video or
It
both?
is a video as well, so I
Okay.
will make you co-host and give you the ability to do so. There you have it.
There's a website while you're doing that. I'll just mention it right here. It's called worldpopulationreview.com just worldpopulationreview.com. And this is a site that I go to a lot. You see my screen there?
Yeah, got it.
Cool. And it's just something where I'm looking for if I'm looking for, I'll show you two different sites. Another one just so as an example, and I hope this works, but LandWatch.com is a good place I like to go to find.
Yep, I do as well.
Land. Okay. So at worldpopulationreview.com, you get a lot of information on stats. There's a lot of annoying ads. You got to click them through. But let's just say, for example, let's look at my battery's running low. Let's look at Pennsylvania. And this gives you all kinds of information about Pennsylvania, but there's two maps in here that I like to look at. I'm going to get my new mouse set up here. If I scroll down, and they do this by county. And so here is the population growth rate by county.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see the red is the highest growth, and you can see the oranges are next, and then the blues are the lowest population growths. And you can see over on the right-hand side, growth since 2010, it's dropped 6.3% in Warren County. In this county, it's dropped 5.64. So this just is in a simple way, and you can do this for all 50 states, kind of see by this where the counties are growing. But this is the one thing I like here. This is population density by county.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I'm going to be, I learned this from another mutual friend of ours, Larry Goins.
Mm-hmm.
He's in Charlotte, North Carolina, very competitive. A lot of hedge funds are there, right? And where 5 years ago, he was wholesaling and doing a bunch of deals in Charlotte, where he lives, it just got way too competitive. So he decided to go out. And one of the things that I've been watching him over the years, and he's doing really, really well, is he ignores the dark red counties because there's just too much competition. And he goes out into the surrounding counties that are more light orange or light red. And you can see some of these counties that, might still have 50,000 people. Like here's a county, Cumberland County. I don't know what's in Cumberland County, but it's kind of like a red county. You can see it's still got 256,000 people, and it's been growing 8.4% since 2010. Maybe there's a college there or something. But when you've got all this competition, now I was just saying a minute ago, don't worry about competition. But this, still if you can go into a county like this, there is so much opportunity in the small counties and the small towns, on residential and commercial. And I really believe this. And people are just like, what are you talking about? But here's the thing. There's people that still want to live in these small towns, in these small communities. And there's very little inventory there. There's very few houses for sale there. There's very few storage units there. And you can still, that county's growing. There's still a good population there. I was talking to Larry about this, and his criteria is real simple when he's flipping houses. And I learned this from him years and years ago, was if it has a gravel road, I'm sorry, the house has to be on a paved road, and it needs to be 30 minutes from a Walmart or a Piggly Wiggly. And I don't know if Piggly Wigglies are out there in Indiana, but they're like, like a Dollar General store.
Yep. I think most people know what they are. Yep.
Yeah. And so when he does his marketing, there's very little competition. So he gets a lot of calls. He gets double or triple the response rate on his direct mail. And would you believe he doesn't sell these? It's easier, actually, he says, to sell these things in these small towns than it is in Charlotte. And he just uses local realtors. He doesn't have to go see the houses. So anyway, I've been following people for years that have been doing virtual real estate, and I've been intrigued by that. And I've been doing virtual deals for 8 or 9 years now. And it's still working today. And it's, even though, I hope I'm making sense here, but looking at these counties where you still have over 100,000 people, like Franklin County here is 155,000 people, and the population is growing. And there might be a lot of opportunity in these outlying counties. And these are the counties that you can kind of see maybe where the growth is happening. And you can get a lot of information on these websites as well. Okay. The other place I like to go looking for vacant land is LandWatch. And so, for example, if I go into, let's look at Indiana. No. I was just in North Carolina recently. And so I like North Carolina because when I flip vacant land, I'm looking for more of the rural, at least an hour or 2 hours away from any major city. And it's got to have some kind of features for hunting or camping, or just a place where people can get off the grid. And by the way, I recently bought the domain patriotland.com. And I paid a pretty penny for it, but all right, I'll tell you why later. So here's LandWatch, and this is the entire state, and it's broken out by county and by region. But for example, I'm looking for a little 5 to 40 acre vacant lots that people are interested in for camping or for hunting or whatever. So one of the things I like to do is I want to do a custom size of, let's just say 4 to 40 acres. I'll add that in here. 40 acres. I just filtered out all of the other things. And it tells me that in the Piedmont region is where most of the inventory is. And then there's the mountains region, and then there's a coast region. So if I'm looking for 4 to 40 acres, I'm not going to go into the coast area because properties probably are too expensive there. I can scroll down again and I can look for property types. And I don't want houses, right? So I could select undeveloped. I'm not going to go through all of these because you select them and it keeps on filtering it down. And then you could say recreational and things like that. All right, so here we go. Mountain regions now is number 1 with 2,300. Let's just say I want to focus on the mountains region. So I can click on that. Now here's the next cool thing that it does. I can see by county the most active counties. So Jackson County is number 1. Buncombe County is number 2, right? And so Jackson County is one of the counties that we've done, I don't know, 5 or 6 deals in the last 6 to 8 months. So what I do, then I figure, all right, well, there's a lot. Now these are properties listed for sale. These aren't sold. So this is where a lot of activity is. But I know nobody does the marketing that I do. And so what I do marketing, I do direct mail, and I get about a 10% response rate in my letters. So real quick, I can pick 5 counties here that I should target my marketing. I'm going to target Jackson County, Buncombe, Ashe, Wilkes, and Macon. And we've done about 5, 6 deals in Wilkes County as well. And these, I can then go in and I can pull a list very easily of people that own vacant land, 4 to 40 acres, that have owned it for over 10 years and that have 0 improvements on it. And I can send them a real simple letter. Hey, do you want to sell your land? Call this number. And then we've got this whole system set up where we will they leave a voicemail. We'll send them an offer for 20 cents on the dollar.
Mm-hmm.
We get about 1 out of every 15 to 20 offers accepted at 10 to 20, at about 20 cents on the dollar. And then we do our due diligence. And if it looks like a good property, like some of these here, we'll buy it. If it's worth, if it's worth 100, we'll buy it for 20 and we'll sell it for 50 and make $30,000 wholesale profit on it. Or sometimes we'll sell it with owner financing. So you can also go here and I can sort it by price, low to high. And you can see what other people are doing here. Again, I'm just looking, what is my competition doing? Here's a 4-acre property for sale for $29,900. So I know if I get I don't know what that is, $5,000, $7,000 per acre. I'm going to buy mine for $2,000 an acre, and then I'll sell it for a little bit less. So anyway, it's just looking here where the competition is. And I know if I'm going to sell a 4-acre lot, if I want to sell it fast, I probably should price it at $20,000 or maybe less. I'm going to price it at $15,000 so I can sell it fast, which means I need to buy it for $5,000. So there's a lot of cool tools like that. And I'm sure you've got a bunch of them as well, where you can see where the growth rates are, where the population trends, and where are people advertising their properties and selling them.
Well, and we do, Joe, but here's it's how we apply it. And again, this is the reason why we get on these calls, is to see what other people are doing in different asset classes. They're just a different approach. And that is typically, again, speaking for myself, when a deal comes to me by way of a broker or some of our student partners or our joint venture folks that say, hey, Scott, we'd like to partner on this, then we do the homework and we look to see, is it an area that is growing, with the tools that we have through Yardi and the other data sources. But I have not gone into worldpopulationreview.com to say, okay, what areas are growing fastest and are they close to either an existing facility or close to home? Because that is the business model in the very beginning for myself, and what we teach our folks is we want to be able, the greatest way to create value add in a self-storage facility is we would go out and buy the mom and pop facilities that were on 4 to 5 acre parcels, and they built on 3 to 4 acres, and they still had an acre left, and they either ran out of gas, steam, or just never built on it. Now that they're in the path of progress, they're an area that is growing, and they're full. But they just want to get out. They're just tired, and they've never raised rents, and they don't have a website, and they've done fine the way they are. And so we come in and we pave where it was gravel, or gravel where it was dirt. We put a fence around it, and we add a kiosk or a website where they can be found and rent a unit online. We build another building, we fill it up, we raise rates, and now we've got a 2x return on our money in these secondary and tertiary markets that is in the path of progress where there is growth. So that's an invaluable tool, just another tool to apply to that strategy. And quite honestly, that's how we made our millions in the beginning stages of our career in self-storage, is being in the path of progress, buying up the mom and pops and turning them around. So that's absolutely, another key strategy and another tool. So I appreciate that share.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, Joe, we could go on and on as we always do and talk about other facets, but I want to thank you for your time, first of all, and talking about how we go into a market, just lots of value in how and different ways to be able to approach that. So why don't you, I know you're working in multiple asset classes and land, self-storage, commercial, working in houses. And you also help people on this end as well. So if people want to learn a little bit more about how you do it and what you're doing, what's a good way for them to be able to get into contact with you?
Well, my website, joemccall.com. And I also have a podcast, realestateinvestingmastery.com. I've always traditionally focused on houses, single family homes, fast cash strategies, I call them. So you flip them quickly. Sometimes we hold them through lease options. But my podcast is more general real estate investing specific. I talk about a lot of strategies. I'm in the middle of a series right now called Deals Gone Bad. And maybe you've got a couple we should talk about. But everybody's got a bad deal, right? And it's fascinating talking about these. I've been interviewing people. I got about 14 or 15 done. I got about another 10 or so scheduled. I just posted something on Facebook that says, I said, hey, who's got a bad deal they'd want to talk about on my podcast? And I was shocked how many people said, I want to talk about my bad deal. And so you can learn a lot of really valuable lessons from other people, from their mistakes. I think somebody said smart people learn from their mistakes. Wise people learn from the mistakes of others.
Yeah.
And so this has been a fascinating journey that I've been on in my podcast, interviewing people with bad deals. One guy, somebody started growing marijuana and in a big, huge, major industrial type of way. Other people I won't go into all the details, but if anybody's interested in learning and hearing about a bunch of bad deals, and the cool thing is these people bounce back from it. They rebounded, they hit bottom with this bad deal. They lost a lot of money or almost did. And then they recovered and they're still in the business today, stronger than ever. That kind of stuff inspires me. I love interviewing people like that. And so we also share a lot of really good gold nuggets, but Real Estate Investing Mastery is the podcast. People can find that just by searching it or search for Joe McCall.
Well, and you're absolutely right. There's a reason why, and we're going through a challenging deal right now. It's not a bad deal, but just a couple of nuances to this that yet again, I have something to teach other folks and to talk about at the dinner table. Never fun when you're going through it, but this is how you become wiser. And I think we could all agree that's the reason why real estate contracts or just plain business contracts continue to get larger and thicker, is because there's another unscrupulous individual who tried to pull something, and here's what happened. So now to safeguard ourselves, we're going to add this paragraph to the agreement and the contract.
Exactly.
And you build that to, in your bank of experience, again, through learning it on your own, which is the ones that stick, but definitely learning it from others so that you can draw on those when you're faced with those situations and hopefully avoid it in your own investing career.
Which is absolutely why your mastermind is so important for people to be a part of. Wouldn't it be better to learn what to avoid than actually by hearing or seeing somebody else who's been there, done that, than going through that lesson, a very expensive lesson yourself? So there's such a huge value of being part of masterminds. And I even one time, I'm part of several national masterminds, or people from all over the country are in it. But I even started a local mastermind for local real estate investors. It was invite only. You had to be an active real estate investor. And it was awesome. We had 10 or 12 people on average once a month that would come in. And you would think, okay, your own market, people are going to be afraid to share their secrets or whatnot. But it didn't turn into that at all. We ran it for a couple of years. It was amazing. Just people sharing what this is about. Hey, don't put any signs out in that area. The cops will get you, hey, I got a deal that I don't want to buy it. Do any of you know of a buyer, or do any of you have money that you could lend on the deal? So we started wholesaling deals to each other, selling. I have a buyer, I have a seller, and the other person in the group would have, another buyer or seller. So it's not about competition as much as it is about collaboration. And these masterminds that you run are so important for people, just to kind of, your network determines your net worth, something like that. Someone said, right?
It is, and that's how you and I met, Joe. And it within ours at thestoragemastermind.com. I mean, we very quickly let everybody know that this is a confidential and a safe place to bring those challenges. And the quicker that people feel comfortable in doing that, then the deeper they go in sharing, which is where more of the learning occurs for everybody. And then all of a sudden, there's this trust, this confidence, and this air of confidentiality that people know that they can bring, 99% of, either their secret sauce to share with the group or their problems that they, some cases, can't share anywhere else. And that is why that is, the power of a mastermind, as you mentioned, is just incredible versus going into, an event or being a part of any other group. And, we've seen its business change and its life change as well. And that's what happens when you get it within a good one.
Yep, for sure.
Well, Joe, again, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it. And guys, go check out Joe's podcast, his strategies at joemccall.com as well. And Joe, leave us with, if you would, how about your pick, either words of wisdom, some of the greatest advice you've ever received from a mentor or somebody wiser, perhaps grayer hair than the both of us, or a book you're reading. Take your pick.
Oh, I got a lot of that. You know, I keep on coming back to, there's two books written by Mike McCall that just really had a huge impact in my business. Profit First is one of them, and The Pumpkin Plan is another one. If you guys have not read one of those two books, both of them, you really need to pick them up. Pumpkin Plan talks all about focus. It's so easy to get distracted and try to do a bunch of different things. Find your big pumpkin and focus on that. It's a great book. And then Profit First, got to pay your taxes. A wise man said to me one time, pay your taxes. And so if you don't, you're going to get in trouble. Ask me how I know. When you start making a lot of money and you're not paying your taxes, you can get in big trouble. It was years and years ago, but like, that's a big deal. And as your business starts to grow and as you start making more money, it's easy for small business owners, entrepreneurs to not pay yourself first. It's called checkbook managing, where, you just look at your checkbook and you got money in there. You say, oh, I can afford that. I'll get that. I'll pay for that. But instead, it's taking your revenue minus your profit, minus the taxes, minus paying yourself, your salary, and whatever you have left is what you use for overhead. Most of us have it backwards. It's revenue minus expenses equals profit. It should be revenue minus profit equals expenses. And when you figure that out, then you might need to hire someone to take care of your books for you. But one thing I've learned, big expensive lessons learned, is if you don't know your numbers, you don't have a real business. And that's really important, right? So it's important to know your numbers. Those two books are really good by Mike McCall, and he's written some others that are real good as well. I'd recommend that.
Yeah. Well, fantastic and great advice. Read them both. Had a chance to hang out with Mike McCallowitz also back in December of last year. So coming up on a year now, just incredible individual who gets small business, because he too has had a lot of those life lessons, and then he wrote about them and can teach us all. So Joe, with that, thanks for your time. Glad to see you're feeling better, and looking forward to seeing you again very soon. Thanks,
Thank you, Scott. It's been a pleasure.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening as always. Now, we're going to be talking about topics like this that are on target for the times that we find ourselves in. So it is important that you are listening to this podcast every single week, because the guests that I'm going to be bringing on and the topics we will be covering are relevant to what we are all going through right now. And it's just going to get better and better and better in terms of the content that we're going to be discussing, and it's going to be more timely than ever. So please, make sure you subscribe to the show and make sure you're paying attention to these episodes as they are coming out during this period, as I am specifically going out and finding guests who are providing really valuable information you need right now. So thank you so much. We'll see you next week.